I'm currently closing in on 1,000 roller coasters. My count sits at 979. At this point, I have no clue what my 1,000th coaster will be, but I'm hoping it'll be one of the great new for 2020 rides once parks start reopening. So I thought it'd be a good time to reflect on my current Milestone coasters and share some stories about them. My first ever roller coaster was Rudys Rapid Transit Coaster at Santa's Village. This Zaire Tivoli coaster had no minimum height, so I was able to ride this at the young age of 2. The layout may be cookie cutter now, but it holds a special place in my heart for nostalgia. This coaster seemed huge when I was 2 years old. My 16th roller coaster was the Yankee Cannonball at Canobie Lake Park. I mention this because it was my first ever wooden coaster. Once I hit that magical 48-inch mark, I was finally able to ride the wooden coaster that had been teasing me for the first 7 years of my life. And it also opened up a wide range of other coasters at other parks. My 50th roller coaster was Steel Force at Dorney Park. And I'm not going to lie, I was absolutely terrified of this coaster. I had to think if I was even going to ride it. To that point, my tallest roller coaster had been Great Bear, so Steel Force was twice as tall. But I forced myself to ride it, and it became my favorite roller coaster at the time. My 100th roller coaster was Ride of Steel at Darien Lake. I purposely subjected myself to the park's trash in Mind Eraser, Boomerang, and Predator before riding Ride of Steel to ensure that Ride of Steel would be my 100th coaster. And it was a great ride. In retrospect, that might have been a risky move because this is an Intamin and Intamins can break down, but I didn't want to call an SLC my 100th coaster. My 200th coaster was Medusa at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. Going into my visit, I was 2 coasters shy of 200. I was torn whether or not to make Superman or Medusa my 200th. Ultimately, I decided it made sense to rope drop Superman due to its capacity, and that made Medusa my 200th coaster. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite floorless coasters. My 300th coaster was Racer at Kings Island, specifically the blue side. I was 5 short of 300 when I got to Kings Island. Since I was visiting with a coaster club, we had morning ERT on the park's signature coasters. That meant one of the big rides wasn't going to be my 300th. So I ultimately settled on the classic Racer as my 300th coaster. It's definitely a bumpy ride, but it does have some airtime. My 400th roller coaster was Hellcat at Clementon Park. And this was sort of a weird visit because the park was a ghost town. There were more employees than guests. So I actually got a Zen ride for my 200th coaster, and this was in the middle of the afternoon on a Sunday in June. As for the ride, let's just say my back remembers it quite vividly. This was not a smooth ride. My 500th coaster was the famous Olympia looping. I rode it at Oktoberfest in Munich in 2017. While I personally found the coaster a bit overrated, it was undeniably cool to finally ride this iconic traveling Schwarzkopf looper and have it as a Milestone coaster. My 600th coaster was the Runaway Mountain coaster in Branson. In retrospect, I probably should have tried to make Time Traveler or Outlaw Run my 600th coaster, but I really wasn't paying attention to what my count was on this trip, and when I saw this mountain coaster on the Parkway en route to Silver Dollar City, I eagerly pulled into the lot and inadvertently made this my 600th coaster. But I have to say, this was one of the best mountain coasters out there, so it was a worthy 600th credit. It was quite long and pretty aggressive. Story time. My 700th coaster should have been Steel Vengeance. I was at 697 credits. So on my way to Cedar Point, I planned shameful stops at Fun for All in Pennsylvania and Memphis Kiddie Park. My stop at Fun for All was a success, but I can't say the same about Memphis Kiddie Park. You see, there was a heat advisory, so Memphis Kiddie Park decided to close. I guess I could have tried to borrow a kid and ride Cedar Point's kiddie coaster as 699 because I hadn't ridden that coaster yet, but I have far too much dignity to borrow someone else's child. That's just creepy. So I made Steel Vengeance number 699. So what did that leave as coaster number 700? The Python at Coney Island. This Galaxy-style coaster did have a decent pop of airtime on the drop at least, but it was otherwise uneventful. My 800th coaster was Yukon Striker Canada's Wonderland, their new for 2019 B&M dive machine. And this is one of the best dive machines out there. While it does have the vest restraints, it has a colossal first drop, and the layout is unique and inversion heavy. My 900th coaster was Furia Bobbie on Land. This new for 2019 Gerstlauer was quite fun. The multi-launch coaster lets riders vote whether to go forwards or backwards. As a result, it delivers some really unique sensations if you're on a backwards train. So those are my Milestone coasters for now. Do you plan specific rides to be your Milestone coasters? I'd love to hear about your Milestone coasters down below and any stories related to them. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more coaster videos here at Canobie Coaster.